everyone, welcome back to Rushing the Field. He's Joshua Perry. I'm Nicole Auerbach, and we're excited to be joined by Curt Cignetti, head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers, 6-0 for just the second time in program history. So first of all, congrats, Coach, and tell us the secret sauce. How are you guys first team in the country to be bowl eligible this season?
Well, the secret sauce is we've walked off the field getting done what we wanted to get done, right? But I guess when you go all the way back, I mean, my first day on campus, we have 10 offensive starters in the transfer portal and half the defense. So we had a lot of work to do in December, but we brought 22 transfers in 3 weeks, and they were all 2-3-year starters at the places they had been. And I felt in my heart like we had flipped the roster, and the culture change started in the winter with the strength program and then spring ball, summer, fall camp. I thought we had a chance. I really did. And, we put it on the field, and it's nice to get a little break. Accomplish a few things this week, and then next week start Nebraska prep in earnest.
Well, Coach, how do you get it all to come together, right? You talked about bringing in the guys through the portal, and then you said the culture really developed through the strength and conditioning. But how does the team really start to take on the culture of the program?
Well, when you take a program over, basically, to keep it simple, you got to change the way people think, inside and outside the program. And you got to set high expectations and standards and have accountability throughout the entire organization, and consistency in performance day in, day out. So you don't have those high highs and low lows, and stay where your feet are. Stay focused on the present moment, control the controllables, right? We try to play that way. One play at a time, 6 seconds a play. Every play's got a life and a history of its own, never too high, never too low. On the next play, fast, physical, relentless, smart, disciplined, poised. So, I started to see that. About the 5th spring practice, it looked like a practice, but the consistency I started to see show up in August, and now you got to put it on the field, right? So the first game we got off to a fast start, didn't love the way the offense played the last quarter and a half, couple holding calls, couple penalties, got behind the chains, but really played well the second game, even though the opponent wasn't a great opponent, and played pretty good out on the West Coast against UCLA, and so here we go. Now, it's far from perfect. We got a lot of areas we got to improve and clean up yet, but we've answered the bell and, overcome every obstacle along the way.
When you talked about kind of changing the way people think outside of the program, I was on that set at BTN on the day you got the job, and you said, hey, we're going to be playing here in Lucas Oil, where the Big Ten Championship was going to be played next year. So you were already talking about that. Everyone's seen the clips of you telling everyone to Google me, of the clips from the basketball game last year. How important was it to get that outside energy and the excitement and the fans to believe that these things are possible for Indiana football?
Yeah, and I haven't done that with every other job. I felt it was important in this particular situation just because of the lack of success and the sort of the prevailing attitude around here, lack of excitement, sort of a can't get done here, hopelessness type of I just detected early on within my first couple hours on campus. And so, I had to sort of set an expectation level that, hey, this is what we're about. This is what we've been about, this staff, we're used to winning championships. We're used to winning football games. Failure will not be tolerated here, and we have a blueprint and a plan. And it's all about people you hire and the people you bring into the program to play and create an environment where they can thrive. But that's what we're all about, and that's what we were going to get done year one.
You mentioned your staff, and you brought a lot of those guys over from JMU. How important was it to have them? And when I watch the tape, I feel like I see the fundamentals show up. How do they teach the players to replicate what they do in practice on game time?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, my offense coordinator has been with me 9 years. My defense coordinator, 10 years. Mike Shanahan and Bryant Haynes. Not all as coordinator. Strength and conditioning, Derek Owens, 5. Special teams guys, 6. So on and so forth. And a lot of JMU guys here are people that have played for me in the past that understand how I run things. Understand the program, how we practice, how we prepare. There's no surprises because they've been with me a while. So basically you got a blueprint, you got a plan, and you execute it on a daily basis. You got a certain way you play the game, certain things you emphasize, and you get the players to buy in. And that's a big part of my job right there. You got to get inside their heads. And, after a certain amount of repetitions, hopefully they get it. And so far they have.
So when you talk about the staff too, I mean, like you have coached at different levels of college football. You've won a lot in a number of places. And I think really impressively, like when JMU moved up from FCS to FBS, you guys won right away too. So like to me, taking that next step to a power conference job, but replicating the way that you guys have done it elsewhere makes a lot of sense to me. But were there people that wondered if what you've done at lower levels would translate, could work in the Big Ten?
Well, I'm sure there were a lot of skeptics out there. I could tell, based on reaction to comments. And even that day up at Lucas Oil, I just had a very subtle vibe that Indiana, you know what I mean? Coming from you guys.
Well, I just was blown away by the idea of, calling your shot. Year one, Indiana, Big Ten title game.
And that's kind of why I made the comment. Good thing I've been here because we're coming back. Just to, it was partly in jest, but partly not. But from my standpoint, like people say, why'd you take the job? Well, I felt like I'd done this turnaround 2 or 3 times before already. So let's do it there. There's no reason with the proper commitment it can't get done. And, I felt strongly that they were going to ante up here. The president and AD assured me, and I believed them and I liked them. And, I knew our way would work. And it was just a matter of putting the pieces together.
All right, let's take this Lucas Oil conversation a step further. So we're sitting here midway through the season. Indiana's bowl eligible, perfect record. You start looking down the schedule, and what we do in our industry is we like to make predictions. And it feels like there is a path, right? And so how much of that conversation happens in the building for you? Or do you talk about the ability to play for a Big Ten championship in year one, or is it strictly day by day?
Yeah, never. We never talk about results. Everything's process oriented. I don't know what the future holds, but I know how we're going to prepare every day for the future. And there'll be no self-imposed limitations on what we can accomplish. And, when we take the field, we'll be prepared and confident.
So I want to talk about your quarterback, Curtis Rourke, because I think if people weren't watching him when he was in the MAC, he was one of the best players in the group of 5, full stop. And he's been really, really good in what you guys are doing offensively. I think Joshua and I have had this conversation. I think he could be in the NFL. But tell us about, when you're looking for a quarterback, you're adding pieces through the portal, how you land on Curtis Rourke, what those early conversations are like, and how he's been able to do this so well for the Hoosiers.
Right. Well, our last 4 quarterbacks have been player of the year in the league on offense. And the previous 2 were 1-year transfers like Curtis. So Curtis had played a lot of successful football with player of the year in the MAC in 22, hurt his knee, came back, wasn't cleared till about the first game in 23. So had to round back into form, but it was very evident on tape. He knew how to play the position. He could make the throws. He was poised, could get you back to 2nd and 10 when put in a bad spot, do a lot of touchdown passes, not many interceptions, won a lot of games, 2-minute drives for touchdowns. So liked him. Liked his makeup, liked him a lot. He bought into the vision and decided to come, and he's playing great football.
What's it like managing a roster at this point in the season? You got transfers in, kind of young guys maybe have an eye on the portal. You're trying to balance, getting the reps and developing young guys versus having depth for game day. Like, how do you manage a roster at this point in the year?
Like any other year, honestly. We're really a veteran team because of all the guys we brought in from the portal. We have a lot of guys that have played a lot of football. Now, what's really different about football today is because they can play 4 games and then redshirt, you get the older guys that maybe are backups on special teams that all of a sudden come to you and they want to go in the portal and do it all over again somewhere else because they're not a starter. That's what's new, but that's going on across the country. At this point in the season, the culture is good. The attitude is good. It's just a matter of staying humble and hungry and avoiding kind of the warm fuzzies and not being complacent, right? And, when it gets to be game week, making sure that we're putting the prep in, the detailed prep, putting the time in, stringing good practices together to give ourselves the best chance on Saturday.
I like the use of warm fuzzies instead of rat poison. I think we should start using that across the board instead.
There you go.
But coach, as we're getting to know you, and as the Big Ten's getting to know you, can you tell us a little bit about your dad and growing up the son of a coach, and just sort of how that shaped who you are?
Yeah. Well, my dad, back then, you got to college football by being a high school coach. This is in the 60s. So they won a few championships, and he got hired by Dave Hart at Pitt. And 69, we're in Princeton, New Jersey, the 100th year of college football. And then 70 went with Bobby Bowden. He took the West Virginia job. So I'm in third grade, and, I'm on the sideline for every game in the locker room at halftime and listening to Coach Bowden and this and that. And then Bobby left in 75, and my dad took over, and it came down with cancer, was given his last rites twice. And I was the oldest in the family, but I always wanted to coach. Like 70 sealed the deal for me when we went to West Virginia. And so had that opportunity and learned a lot from him. He was a great man. He was a great leader, led by example, high character, great work ethic, very competitive. And, we were a competitive, sports-oriented family. The younger brothers coached a long time and spent a lot of time as an assistant, obviously, Pitt, and then went with Coach Majors to Pitt his second time around. He was a legend. And Walt Harris knew a lot about quarterback play, and Chuck Amato had come from Florida State, was Bobby Bowden's right-hand man when they were really doing well there, and then had the opportunity to go with Nick on, first year at Alabama, part of the original crew. We're 7-6 our first year, and our first recruiting class, we signed 6 first-round draft choices and go undefeated in regular season year 2, won national championship year 3. So I took a big chance. I was hitting a big 5-0, didn't want to be an assistant anymore, took a D2 job, and woke up many a days thinking I was crazy. 3 kids, 2 girls that wanted to go to med school and 1 in college, and wondering what I did. But, we had family there, and, we were happy and comfortable, built the team, we were good, and moved on to Elon. They were about 10-45 and lost our first game to Toledo and won 8 in a row after that, and then beat JMU up there the next year, and then took the JMU job. And like you said, I loved JMU. I was going to stay, but this opportunity appealed to me. So I've been around a lot of great people, a lot of assistant coaches that you've probably never heard of that were great coaches too, that have sort of molded me. But my dad was a tremendous influence.
It sounds like a dream, just if you could build a career, and obviously having followed it from childhood, that's amazing. I wanted to ask about this current team. Talked about your quarterback, people talk about the wide receivers and running backs, but is there an unsung hero so far, like a guy who just shows up every day doing the dirty work for you guys that kind of drives things?
Well, as a unit, the offensive line, we're not deep there. We have 5 guys that have played almost every snap other than when, game's out of reach and we sub out. Those guys have really done a great job. Zach Horton is a guy. Yeah. The tight end, he's a darn good football player, does a lot of things for us. And he plays the game the way it's supposed to be played. Kind of an unsung hero. There's no question about it, because, the quarterback's going to get attention, the running backs, the receivers, and there's a lot of receivers and a lot of running backs. That's one thing we do. We spread the ball around. We have about 10 different guys touch the ball every game. But Zach Horton is a tremendous football player.
What would you say, because as you sit here, it's bye week, keys to the second half of the season? What would allow you guys to accomplish what you want in year 1?
Stay focused, eliminate the clutter and the noise, improve as much as you can every single day. And that's the whole deal.
Okay. My last question is, I've been told that you have a recliner chair that is 35 years old. I need to know more about this. And does it still work? Okay.
So I get flack from my wife for calling it a lazy boy. It's Bradenton and Young, but we've been married 35 years, and we bought that chair the first year we were married. And that chair is 35 years old. It's been sent out for repair probably 3 or 4 different times. It doesn't fit any new house we buy, the TV room or the main room, but it makes the trip, makes the roster, makes the cut, and sits right there in the middle of that room. And I refuse to allow her to replace that chair because that's my chair.
It feels like an old ball coach story. Like, this is so on brand. I
love that it's like your marker of the wedding anniversaries too. You can keep track of like how old the chair is.
The company, actually, there was an article came out, and they emailed us, and they offered to replace the chair and get my wife one also. And I just told them I'm so attached to this, and they said, well, maybe we can do something to it, but let's not mess with the karma right now. You stay with it this fall. And I said, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, you can't do anything about it now. And I'm sure she probably doesn't want one. Like, I'm guessing that this is not a chair she ever sits in.
I know she wants to get rid of this one. That's not happening.
All right, well, you can't get rid of it now. 6-0 Indiana for the second time in program history. Coach, congrats on an amazing start. Can't wait to watch you guys the rest of the year.
Thank you. Have a great day.